As a sergeant with 30 years of experience, Dave Roberts is familiar with getting caught up in police pursuits, but earlier this year he could have lost his life in one after his car was deliberately rammed off a dual carriageway.
The accomplished policeman is now experiencing flashbacks and sleepless nights. He's here in the studio to talk to us.
And Sgt Roberts joins us now. This was only February of this year.
That's right, yes.
It must be pretty traumatic for you to see that again. Were you happy with us showing?
Absolutely settled with it now. It's something that I've been aware of since the day it happened, and I've watched it a number of times for various reasons. It does generate that feeling of a little bit of anxiety when you see it, because it's just not nice to see, and it really wasn't nice to be in. But I'm all right with it now. It's
really important just kind of to say this to you and to police officers across the country, because, you know, there's lots of times in the last few months and years where we've reported things which have gone wrong with policing. We had an issue on our programme just a few weeks ago down in Sussex where a PCSO hadn't responded to a shoplifting complaint, and we talked about that. But every day, police officers like you are doing dangerous, brave things to keep the public safe, and we don't say that often enough. And I was looking at the figures, 40,000 assaults in the last year on police officers, 11,000 leading to an injury to the police officer. What happened to you is, I'm afraid, not unusual, and you still choose to do that job.
You put the uniform on, you understand that there are risks associated with what you do. You're not immune to that. And we're human beings, and that's one of the points that I like to get across from this, that, yes, the job is complex and there are issues and complaints about how the service is delivered, but on a day-to-day basis, people like me put a uniform on with expectation of going home at the end of the day. And we do our very best. We try really hard, irrespective of what the issues are. When we go onto the streets, in whichever policing function we do, we just want to do the best we can. And the risk is as you see, unfortunately. And
can I just ask you, I mean, when you were in that pursuit, it started from a jumping of a red light and then going down the wrong way down a carriageway. This is the sort of thing that you, obviously, this is your job, this is the sort of thing you're always on the lookout for. At what point during this high-speed chase did you think this is now entering danger territory for you?
We're highly trained. We look to identify risk and try and minimise it if we can. But there was a point during this pursuit when he's directly behind me, as you can see on the footage, where he wasn't responding as people normally do. So
the reason you go in front is that's the tactic, right?
It's one of the tactics. We were looking to employ a tactic at that particular point, but it wasn't possibly
quite right. And that usually, how do people normally respond? If they're already in the wrong, but the police car goes in front of them?
Generally, the tactic results in people slowing down and coming to a stop, or there's other things that we could have done. But because that particular point in the pursuit was possibly an opportunity to do something different, and we're trying to plan that next stage, but he made the decision he did to make contact with the car, and as you see, the consequences were clear.
And you thought you were going to die?
At the point, my experience in roads policing tells me that an impact at 50 miles an hour on that kind of road, taking a vehicle out of control, who knows what will happen next? It's a lottery, really. And at the point that he made the contact that he did, as the car was spinning, I'm a passenger. I've got no control. I've got no idea what's about to happen next. Am I going home that night? Am I not?
It was clear. I mean, it's clear that the motorist, who's called Nathan Ferguson, I mean, he was intending to hit you and to cause harm. He pleaded guilty to dangerous driving, to driving while disqualified, to driving without insurance, and assault causing actual bodily harm. Now, the law changed recently, back in 2019, this was introduced, to say that anyone convicted of killing an emergency worker while committing a crime, a police officer, but other emergency workers, gets a mandatory life sentence. That's now the law. In this case, he was potentially aiming to take your life, certainly to cause serious harm. His sentence wasn't mandatory life, of course. It was 30 months, which means he will end up serving slightly more than a year. I've got to say, that seems, when it's a police officer, that seems a very short sentence.
It does, and I'll be honest, I don't get focused on sentencing. Our job is to put the person in front of the court with the best evidence that we can, and the investigating team on this did a fantastic job to do exactly that. The sentence that came out of it would never repair what he did to the police car or to me. It's not something that I ever focus on, but I hear what you're saying.
Can I just ask you, obviously you suffered physical injuries in that, but also, of course, the mental trauma of it all. How has it affected you?
I work a lot with officers who experience things like this. Unfortunately, as you said earlier on, that these things happen all too often. And I'm quite aware as to the journey that we all take.
40,000 a year is
It's a lot of people, isn't it? If you break that down to individuals, my name's Dave, individuals with families and loved ones, that's a wide impact on a lot of people. What happened to me, the injury was fairly minor, thankfully. However, the ramifications of what he potentially could have achieved that day are not lost on me. You know, I was very keen to sort of try and move through it as best I could, but I'm a human being. And human beings will always focus on the reality that at that particular event, I could have died.
So you're having sleepless nights?
I was at the time, yes.
Yeah. And how are you now?
I'm getting there, I'm good, thank you. The support that we've got in force is phenomenal. A peer support system around trauma management. It really helps people to return to doing what I love doing.
And, you know, you're not a sort of media-trained spokesperson for the police. You know, you don't... I asked you just before, have you done a lot of this? You're like, no.
No, not at all.
You know,
No.
This isn't my job, but to speak up for what police officers do day in, day out. But what is it that you want to achieve by, A, sharing that, which, of course, is very traumatic footage for you? Why is it that you feel the need to talk about it and to come on shows like this and to say, what is it that you want people to realise?
I would like people to understand the risks that every police officer in the country faces every day that they go out. This sadly happens, as you've said, all too often. And the public need to be aware that we are human beings. We're not there to be assaulted. We're not there to be taken off the roads because we're hindering their activities in whatever they're doing. And the second issue is about trying to promote that conversation around these difficult journeys that a lot of us have had and will continue to have, to be more open about this.
You mean mental well-being?
Mental well-being,
right.
to talk about the traumatic experience, really.
But it's also, you know, you're talking to our viewers, you are helping other police officers. Does talking about this also help you to deal with it and get beyond it?
Personally, I look for a positive from anything that we deal with, and this is a positive for me. It helps me find an outlet for what I've gone through. And yes, it is part of it, I'll be honest. But that's, again, part of the message, to look to other people, to share their experiences, because it then has that domino effect of helping others move through their own experience.
Well, thank you for your public service. And when you're talking to other police officers in a similar position, thank them as well, because it's a very difficult job you do, and we really appreciate your service.
You're welcome. Thank you.